Episode 33, Reinforcements in the Dark. The three riders disappeared into the darkness just before midnight, their slow circuit finally breaking as they turned south toward Medicine Hat. Sarah watched from the window until the last shadow melted into the prairie night, her rifle still resting across her lap. "They're reporting back," Henry Blackburn said quietly from his position near the door. "Hartwell will know our numbers now, our positions, how we're armed." Eleanor set down her cold tea. Will he attack tonight? No. Blackburn's certainty was absolute. He'll want daylight, wants to see what he's shooting at, and wants witnesses in town to confirm he was having breakfast at the hotel when it happened. His men will come at dawn or just after, when we're tired from watching all night. Daniel shifted beside Sarah, his hand finding hers in the darkness. Then we should sleep in shifts. Stay sharp for morning. "I'll take first watch with Samuel," Blackburn said. "You two get some rest. Eleanor, you should sleep too. You'll need your strength tomorrow." But none of them moved. The homestead felt like a ship waiting for a storm. Every creak of settling timber a potential threat. Every gust of wind against the walls a warning. Thomas had finally fallen asleep in the back room, curled beneath Eleanor's quilt. But the adults remained suspended in the tense hours before dawn. Sarah was watching the eastern horizon, still dark, still empty, when she heard it. Hoofbeats. Multiple horses moving fast across the hard ground. Blackburn was at the window in an instant, rifle raised. 3 riders coming from the north. North? Daniel was on his feet, moving to his own position. Not from Medicine Hat? Could be circling around, Samuel said, checking his shotgun. Coming at us from an unexpected angle. Eleanor extinguished the lamp, plunging the room into darkness. Sarah's heart hammered as she pressed against the wall beside the window, watching the shapes materialize from the night. 3 horses, moving with purpose, but not stealth. And then, "Hold your fire!" The voice cut through the darkness, familiar and commanding. "It's James Mackenzie." Sarah's rifle clattered against the wall as she yanked open the door. "Papa!" James swung down from his horse before it fully stopped, catching Sarah as she ran to him. His embrace was fierce despite the lingering weakness in his left arm, and Sarah felt him trembling. Whether from exhaustion or emotion, she couldn't tell. "Thank God," he breathed against her hair. "Thank God you're safe." Eleanor was there then, and Thomas appeared in the doorway, rubbing sleep from his eyes. The family held together for a long moment while the 2 men with James dismounted and waited with the quiet patience of those accustomed to family reunions in crisis. "Sergeant Morrison, Constable Webb," James said finally, gesturing to the mounted police. They were the only men Sergeant Morrison could spare. "There's been trouble with bandits hitting homesteads east of Medicine Hat, and most of the force is on patrol." The 2 constables were young, perhaps 25, with the lean build and weathered faces of men who spent their lives in the saddle. Morrison had dark hair and a neat mustache, while Webb was fair-haired with pale eyes that missed nothing as they surveyed the homestead's defenses. "Ma'am," Morrison nodded to Eleanor. "Your husband briefed us on the ride. We're here to help however we can." Blackburn stepped forward, extending his hand. "Henry Blackburn, Pinkerton Agency. Appreciate the assistance, though I wish it were more." "We're what you've got," Webb said bluntly, "but we're good shots and we don't scare easy. How many are we facing?" 6 professionals from Calgary, Blackburn said. "Maybe more if Hartwell hired local muscle. They'll come at dawn or just after, probably from multiple directions to divide our fire." James listened to this assessment with a grim expression, his hand still resting on Sarah's shoulder. "Samuel, how many defenders do we have total?" 10 counting you and the constables, Samuel said. "Johann and Peter are in the barn with 2 of Johann's sons. Daniel, Henry, Eleanor, Sarah, and me in here. Plus the 2 prisoners in the root cellar, though I wouldn't trust them with weapons. 10 against 6 professionals and whatever local help they've bought." James rubbed his face, exhaustion evident in every line. "Not good odds, but we've faced worse." "You should be in a bed," Eleanor said firmly. "You're barely healed." "I'm here." James's tone allowed no argument. "And I'm staying. Now show me what we're working with." They gathered around the table while Blackburn sketched out the homestead's layout and defensive positions. The soddy's thick walls would stop most bullets, and they'd reinforced the barn with extra timber and sacks of grain. The root cellar offered a last refuge if the main buildings were overrun, though no one wanted to contemplate that possibility. "The problem is crossfire," Blackburn said, marking positions with his finger. "If they hit us from 3 sides simultaneously, we can't cover all the angles. Someone will have to move between positions, and that means exposure." "I'll do it," Daniel said immediately. "No," Sarah's voice was sharp. "We need you on a rifle. You're the best shot we have." "She's right," James said. "I'll move between positions. I can't shoot worth a damn with this arm anyway, but I can run ammunition and watch for flanking moves." Eleanor opened her mouth to protest, but James met her eyes with a look that held both apology and determination. After a moment, she nodded. "Then I'll watch the back approach," she said. "If they try to circle around, I'll see them coming." Sergeant Morrison studied the map with a professional eye. "What about the mine? Could they come up through there?" "It's flooded at the bottom," Sarah said, "and the entrance is exposed. They'd be sitting targets climbing out, but we should have someone watching it." "I'll take that position," Webb volunteered. "Give me a good vantage point, and I can cover both the mine and the eastern approach." They worked through the details for another hour, assigning positions and establishing signals. The 2 constables proved sharp and practical, asking questions that revealed their experience with defensive situations. James watched his family work with something like wonder in his eyes. Eleanor's calm competence, Sarah's tactical thinking, even Thomas's quiet attention to every detail. "You've all changed," he said softly during a lull in the planning. "Grown stronger." "We had to," Eleanor replied. "You weren't here to be strong for us." It wasn't an accusation, but James flinched anyway. "I know, and I'm sorry for that. For all of it. For not telling you how bad the debt was, for leaving you vulnerable, for—" "Later," Eleanor interrupted gently. "We'll have time for all of that later. Right now, we focus on surviving until later becomes possible." James nodded, accepting the reprieve she offered. The eastern sky was just beginning to pale when Samuel returned from checking the barn. "Johann says everything's secure out there. Peter's got the best angle on the south approach." "Good." Blackburn checked his pocket watch. 2 hours until full light. Everyone should eat something and drink water. It's going to be a long day. Eleanor had kept a pot of stew warm on the stove, and they ate in shifts, no one willing to leave their position unguarded. The food was simple, beans and salt pork, but it settled the nervous energy that had kept them awake through the long night. Sarah found herself standing beside her father as dawn crept closer, both of them watching the empty prairie turn from black to gray. "I met with Whitmore yesterday," she said quietly. "Told him I'd betray the family for $10,000 in safe passage." James turned to stare at her. "You what?" "It's a trap. Henry helped me create false documents. They look like his investigation notes, but they're actually useless. If Hartwell believes I'm willing to sell out, he might negotiate instead of attack, or he might reveal himself trying to complete the deal." James was silent for a long moment, processing this. "That's brilliant," he said finally, "and terrifying, if they realize it's a trap. Then I die," Sarah finished. "But we're all going to die if we just wait for them to attack on their terms. This way, we might draw them out, make them reveal their hand." "When is this meeting supposed to happen?" "Tonight." Whitmore said he'd return with Hartwell's answer. "Tonight." James shook his head slowly. "You're betting they'll wait that long? That they won't just attack at dawn and be done with it?" "I'm betting Hartwell's greedy," Sarah said. $10,000 to buy off a witness and get Blackburn's investigation notes. That's cheaper than hiring more killers, and it's safer than an assault that might fail. He'll at least consider it. And if he doesn't? Sarah touched the rifle leaning against the wall. Then we fight, like we've been fighting since you left for Medicine Hat. The words weren't meant to wound, but James felt them anyway. 3 months. In that time, his family had discovered a mine, survived a siege, exposed a conspiracy, and prepared to face professional killers, all while he was absent, chasing solutions in Medicine Hat that never quite materialized. "I failed you," he said quietly. "All of you. I thought I was protecting the family by handling everything myself, but I just left you vulnerable and alone." "Yes," Sarah agreed. "You did. But you're here now, and that matters. We need you here, Papa. Not perfect, not invincible, just here. James pulled her close, and Sarah let herself be a daughter again for just a moment, drawing strength from her father's presence, even as she recognized that the roles between them had shifted. She was no longer the girl who needed protection. She was the woman who'd set a trap for killers, and would see it through regardless of the cost. The sun's almost up. Daniel called softly from his position. They returned to their places, weapons ready, watching the prairie emerge from darkness. The homestead sat silent in the growing light, every defender tense and waiting. But the dawn came peaceful and empty. No riders appeared on the horizon. No gunshots shattered the morning quiet. The prairie stretched away in all directions, vast and serene, giving no hint of the violence that had been promised. "I don't like this," Blackburn muttered as full daylight arrived. "They should have come by now." "Maybe they're waiting," Eleanor suggested, watching to see if James arrived with more help. "Or maybe," Sarah said slowly, "Hartwell's considering my offer. Maybe he sent those riders last night to scout our defenses, saw we were stronger than expected, and decided negotiation is cheaper than assault." James moved to stand beside Blackburn at the window. "What do you think? Professional assessment." "I think," Blackburn said carefully, "that we're in uncharted territory. In every other case I've investigated, the consortium moved fast once they were exposed. Killed the witnesses, destroyed the evidence, disappeared before authorities could act. But this time, they've hesitated. That's either very good or very bad." "Meaning?" "Meaning either your daughter's gambit worked, and Hartwell's actually considering her offer, or he's planning something we haven't anticipated. Something worse than a direct assault." Sergeant Morrison appeared in the doorway, having made a circuit of the property. No movement anywhere. "It's like they've vanished." "They haven't vanished," Webb said grimly. "They're out there. Question is, what are they waiting for?" The answer came 2 hours later, delivered by a rider carrying a white cloth tied to a stick. He approached slowly from the south, hands visible and empty, stopping 100 yards from the homestead. "Message for Sarah Mackenzie," he called. "From Mr. Edmund Whitmore." Sarah's heart hammered as she moved to the door. James caught her arm. "It could be a trap." "It could be," she agreed. "But we need to know what they're offering." She stepped outside, rifle in hand, but pointed at the ground. The rider was young, probably just a ranch hand hired to deliver a message, nervous but trying to project confidence. "You're Sarah Mackenzie?" "I am." He tossed a folded paper toward her, and it landed in the dirt halfway between them. "Mr. Whitmore says to read that and send your answer back with me. Says to tell you that Mr. Hartwell is a reasonable man, but his patience has limits." Sarah walked forward slowly, never taking her eyes off the rider, and picked up the paper. She unfolded it where he could see her reading, though her mind was racing ahead to what this meant. The message was brief. "Miss Mackenzie, Mr. Hartwell has considered your proposal with interest. He is prepared to offer $15,000 plus safe passage to San Francisco in exchange for the documents you described and your sworn testimony that the mine claim is fraudulent. However, he requires proof of your sincerity. You will come alone to the old Henderson claim tonight at 8 o'clock, bringing the documents. Mr. Hartwell will inspect them, and if satisfied, will provide half the payment immediately with the remainder upon your testimony. Should you fail to appear, or should you bring others with you, Mr. Hartwell will consider negotiations concluded and will pursue alternative solutions to this dispute. Your answer is required by noon today. Attorney at law." Sarah read it twice, her mind analyzing every word, every implication. Then she looked up at the waiting rider. "Tell Mr. Whitmore I'll send my answer within the hour." The rider nodded, relieved to have his task completed, and turned his horse back toward Medicine Hat. Sarah walked back to the homestead, aware of every eye watching her, and handed the paper to her father. James read it, his face darkening with each line. "Absolutely not. This is an obvious trap." "Of course it's a trap," Sarah said calmly. "The question is whether it's a trap we can use." Blackburn took the paper, studied it, and then looked at Sarah with something like admiration. "The Henderson claim. That's smart. It's abandoned, isolated, plenty of cover for an ambush. but it's also far enough from Medicine Hat that Hartwell can't claim to have an alibi when it happens. When what happens? Eleanor demanded. When they kill my daughter? When we turn the ambush around, Sarah said. We know they'll be waiting there. We know they'll try to kill me and take the documents. So we get there first. We set up our own positions, and when they spring their trap, we're ready. With 10 defenders against however many killers Hartwell's hired, James shook his head. The odds are terrible. The odds are terrible either way, Daniel pointed out quietly. If we wait here, they'll eventually attack in force or find some other way to destroy us. But if we choose the ground, if we're waiting for them instead of them waiting for us, it's still suicide, Eleanor said flatly. Maybe, Sarah acknowledged, but it's suicide with a chance. And it gets Hartwell and his killers away from Medicine Hat, away from the law's protection, out into the prairie where there are no witnesses except us. Sergeant Morrison had been listening carefully. If we could catch Hartwell himself at the scene, attempting murder, that's different from just arresting his hired men. That's the kind of evidence that could bring down the whole conspiracy. It's also the kind of situation that could get us all killed, Webb added. But I see her point. We're not going to win this fight by waiting. They debated for another 30 minutes, voices rising and falling as they argued tactics and risks. But Sarah could see the shift happening, could feel the group moving toward acceptance of what she'd proposed. Not because it was safe or smart, but because it was the only path forward that didn't end with them trapped and waiting for death. Finally, James looked at his daughter with eyes that held both pride and sorrow. If we do this, and I'm not saying we should, but if we do this, I'm going with you. You don't face Hartwell alone. None of us face him alone, Eleanor said firmly. If Sarah goes, we all go. Sarah looked around the room at her family and the allies who'd become family, seeing the determination in every face. They were exhausted, outgunned, facing professional killers with resources and connections that dwarfed their own. But they were together, and they were done running. Then I'll send my answer, Sarah said. I'll tell Whitmore I accept Hartwell's terms, tonight at 8 o'clock at the Henderson claim. And we'll be there waiting, Blackburn added. All of us. As noon approached and Sarah prepared her response, she felt the weight of what she'd set in motion. Tonight, one way or another, the conflict would end. Either the Mackenzies would destroy the consortium that had hunted them, or they would die trying. There was a strange peace in that certainty, a relief in knowing that the waiting was almost over. She wrote her acceptance in careful script, sealed it, and gave it to Samuel to deliver to the waiting messenger. Then she returned to the window and watched the prairie, knowing that somewhere out there, Martin Hartwell was reading her words and planning how to kill her. Let him plan, she thought. Let him bring his killers and his confidence and his certainty that he'd won. The Mackenzies would be waiting.
Thanks for watching our stories. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more epic adventures. Thanks for watching our stories. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more epic adventures.